Hello, ladies and gentlemen. There's been a lot of discussion about Sunday and how good he will be and how good he won't be. One of these is the argument that you shouldn't pull him or at least be a bit worried about him because they will release a summon Robin. I thought this was a pretty interesting line of thinking, so I'll give my 2 cheap cents on it. And as we do on this channel, we discern whether or not it is a valid thing you should look out for and if Sunday's value will drop because of it. With that out of the way, let's get onto the video. So the idea here is that people should skip Sunday or at least be wary of him because he is a hypercarry support for summons. The logic doesn't seem to be fundamentally wrong, because they will surely be spamming us with remembrance/summon characters, meaning you would most likely want at least 2 limited remembrance characters in your roster. The devs would not make it so that you only need 1 remembrance in the team, because that would obviously sabotage their attempts at selling remembrance characters. So the most likely possibility for remembrance is having 2 remembrance characters in the same team, or even 3 if there's an emanator of remembrance. Sunday, being a unit that only buffs 1 summoner in the team, means there might come a time where Sunday just isn't as good since he only buffs 1 remembrance character, when the meta will likely be around multiple remembrances in the same team. Of course, this is running off the assumption that there is no way remembrance is a hypercarry only path in the first place, and there's valid reasons to put multiple summoners in the team that may have buffing capabilities. Kinda like Nihility. Some Nihility characters can be incidental general supports like Pela, some could be DPS like Acheron, some could be sub-DPS like DOT teams. Of course, there is the element of precedence to this. Sparkle is usually the example shown for this argument. She was a hypercarry buffer when on her own patch. DOT was sold much better. 1 patch later, they released enemies that really wanted break. A Ventrine boss punished her severely, and Acheron didn't really need her either. 2 patches later and the follow-up in Super Break meta showed up, and Sparkle was still fine but went under the radar in terms of usage because of all the obstacles in her way. The theory is that Sunday could lead the same route due to his similarities with Sparkle in function and their design. Now, weighing all of these, is it really valid grounds to maybe worry about Sunday and instead wait for a better summon Robin? First of all, if there was a summon Robin, we have to take note of the time of release. Every patch lasts around 6 weeks, and if summon Robin power creep happens, 3 patches later at let's say 3.2, Sunday has already done his job of 24 weeks, nearly half a year, as the best summon buffer, and that in itself has saved you a lot of jades to pull and you had your fun. And even then, it still may take more time to have a multi-DPS remembrance team to actually build around to be better than Sunday teams. Accounting for that small window of time, the power creep has to be really fast and screw Sunday out of defense like Sparkle did to even be that close, and I would really doubt that. At that point, would the time that you didn't have Sunday and struggled through content to save for a summon Robin even be actually worth it once you do get your summon Robin? Chances are no. Second is enemy design overlap. It's unlikely they will screw over Sunday as much as they did Sparkle, since they should be designing summon-biased enemies. Sparkle had the disadvantage of DOT-based and break-based enemies, which her teams didn't do well in, but what Remembrance the Path should be unique for is the summon element itself. You can't really avoid Sunday in designing enemies like this. He is the prime summon buffer, and even if multi-remembrance is the eventual goal, this in concept wouldn't be too much of a fundamental meta shift as much as Crit to Super Break did, where Sunday would get lost. And being able to run 2 remembrance teams in a single endgame fight, if you have enough characters like Sunday, means you really didn't waste the pulls to get Sunday. Because, like Bronya, the only 2 things better than 1 Sunday in your team is a better Sunday or 2 Sundays. Lastly, to apply the tingyun theorem, which I've already discussed in a few of my videos, if there was a Robin that is a remembrance path character, Sunday will be just like Bronya and advanced side remembrance character to stack together to be the best team in the game with really funny combinations and niche applications, so it's not even power creep at that point. Sunday would be a necessary piece for these teams for various low cycle runs and get more value. Action advance is one of those elements in kits you always have to be careful with, since any slight looking power creep can majorly break the game. Check out my previous video why Sunday can't advance Bronya and why Sparkle didn't have a 100% advance. Action advance being stacked is just hilariously broken, so even if there was a Sunday power creep, it would almost be likely that you'll just run Sunday with this character. Now, to take a step back, Either side of these arguments aren't perfect because we really just don't know what remembrance does. Does remembrance scale only off crit? In which case maybe there's a remembrance character that uses DOT that may not even want Sunday stats and would opt for options like Black Swan or Kafka instead. We really just don't know, and like good gacha players we gamble with our assumptions for the best character and pull them. The reason why people are like this to Sunday is that it's happened before, but I feel like not many are remembering the other side of the Sparkle situation. Ron May was actually at first a concern. Weakness break efficiency was cool, but only Shui really benefited from that noticeably. It wasn't a huge increase for hypercarriers due to her numbers and gimmick. DOT was lacking in numbers until Black Swan, which we didn't know yet. Follow-up attack teams were cool, but without Aventurine, the debuff count was stressful for ratio and needed Sig for consistency. PF was too easy that Ron May being broken for PF wasn't seen as a big of a deal because Himiko and Hertz are pretty much 40k'd it regardless. And Break being in any way meta at all was a crazy guess, and you would be shouted at for slinging copium when you're gonna say Break will be good someday. It was such a crazy thought back then. Meanwhile, Sparkle was a lot more safe in investment since players already experienced hypercarry strength and its struggles that they knew Sparkle's value was useful immediately and most likely in the future. Ron May was actually the gamble in that scenario, and almost anyone would take Sparkle as the safe bet. But again, Ron May was a gamble and she paid off big time. Now the roles are reversed where the hypercarry buffer is being portrayed as the gamble, but really it isn't as big of a gamble as the last time it happened. To answer the title, I really don't think you should worry about it in general. If you like Sunday as a Harmony, he's already in a better place to be useful than a DPS for a longer amount of time. And if you don't like him, then skip him and move on. While the possibility is never zero that Sunday will be doomed after his release very shortly, it shouldn't be a point to doom post him. I can think of 100 reasons to doom post Aglaya, and most of it would be unlikely but never zero. This video isn't meant to be like a endorsement to pull Sunday or anything, just that you probably shouldn't be worried about all of these things because again, you have to take note of parameters like time, like enemy designs, like a lot of that stuff. You have to take that into account when balancing Sunday, and it's really hard to see a universe where he fails, but again, it's happened with Sparkle and it's a non-zero chance of happening. So maybe, maybe not. At the very least, I hope this video can give you a perspective that can aid you in your post to be more informed. Whether you pull Sunday or even if you just skip him, I hope this video at least gave you a bit more perspective in the ongoing discourse. But yeah, like the video if you like this. That's pretty much it. Do all the argument stuff. I'll see you later this week, I guess. Bye bye.